And hello, welcome to the show where I talk about Xianxia and Wuxia, and I'm going to be talking about this MC is Kickass. Welcome. Obviously, if you've watched some of these before, you know that I do readings from time to time. The first disclaimer I always give is that I'm not a native Chinese speaker. I don't understand how to pronounce some things. I try, I have a basic understanding, but you know, like it has been a while since I've done one of these readings, so please forgive me if I make any mistakes or anything. As I said before, I am doing a reading of chapters 1 through 5 of This MC is Kickass, and you know why I'm doing that? I'm doing that because Sigil is going to come on the show for an interview about the novel and about translating and about everything in general, so it's going to be pretty awesome. So I figure maybe I should know about the novel before I talk to him. So it's going to be great. You can see I have the page open. You can read this novel on VolareNovels right now, volarenovels.com/this-mc-is-kickass. If you're listening to this in your car, hope you enjoy it. Maybe it'll, you know, basically convert you to a reader of this novel that you can check out. I'm going to go ahead and read you the synopsis, tell you what I expect from that, and then we'll go ahead and get started. First up, as always, please help support the show by hitting that subscribe button, you know, hit a like on the video, leave us a comment, follow it on Twitter. You can see on the screen it says all that kind of stuff up there, like at Immortal Index and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to get into that too much. So here's the synopsis. While creating her character, the game's system randomly generated a unique name for her. To avoid being recognized by her friends in reality, Bin went for broke and made her in-game character look as ugly as possible, turning her into the ugliest character in the game. But who would have thought that these days, even NPCs would judge her based on her looks? What should she do now? Thankfully, she had enough luck to overturn that. Hidden quests, amazing pets, and top quality equipment were all lined up for her taking. Even male gods were offering themselves up to her. So that is the synopsis. It sounds like it'll be interesting. It seems like a lot of these VR MMO novels have something in common, that they don't take themselves too seriously. They have a lot of comedy. They have a lot of comedic moments. And it's always kind of like, if the MC wants one thing, it kind of goes the other way, which I'm totally down with. And in this way, it seems that she has a unique name. I don't know what the name is because I haven't started yet. But also, it seems like she still, no matter what she tries to do, ends up coming out on top, which is also another big theme. And when you have the show called The MC is Kickass, you would assume that she would come out on top. So we're going to go ahead and dive into it. And you guys let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to be doing 6 through 10 as well, possibly. If I'm feeling it, or I'll just go ahead and do the interview after 5, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm in the live chat too, so if you guys want to talk with me while I do this, I won't interrupt the chapter, but between chapters, if you leave comments, I'll go ahead and talk to you a little bit. So, got my coffee, got everything ready to go, just in case I need to wet my whistle throughout, as you know, I'm reading this for the very first time. I don't know what to expect, so I might flub a little bit, but I'm getting pretty good at doing these readings without having to worry about all that. Starbucks helps. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and flip on over to The MC is Kickass, Chapter 1, Entering the Game. Iris scan complete. Identity verification complete. Welcome to Legends of Celestials and Demons. Please register your username. After being momentarily immersed in darkness, Bin found herself standing on a floating crystal stage. A pleasant-sounding beep could be heard beside her ear that reminded her to proceed with the next step. White clothes warm as jade. After mulling it over for a while, she decided to give herself a fresh and meaningful name. After all, this name was going to accompany her for her entire gaming career. She had heard that Legends of Celestials and Demons didn't permit players to change their names. If they really wanted to, they'd have to recreate their characters. However, the basic attributes of these characters would be greatly reduced, and the probability of her encountering a fortuitous event in the future would also sharply decline. In other words, the penalty for doing so was severe. This was why most people weren't willing to recreate their characters unless some major event occurred. I'm sorry, this name is already in use. Please select a new username. The system's tender voice rang out in Bin's ears once again. She lowered her head and thought for a moment before she said, Tinged blue and white flower. I'm sorry, this name is already in use. Please select a new username. Brilliant peach blossom. I'm sorry, this username is already in use. Please select a new username. Green jade descends like the azure moon. I'm sorry, this name is already in use. Please select a new username. Your mom, she rattled off tens of names, and every single one of them had been registered. the hell was going on? Notification, in view of you taking an extended period of time to choose your username, would you like the system to randomly generate a name for you? Yes or no? A translucent dialog box suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. She had already been worn out by the process of choosing her own username, so she decisively made up her mind to give up on resisting. Yes, the system is randomly generating a name for you. One moment, please. The system has randomly generated a name for you. Greetings, player Nutjob. We officially welcome you to this legendary world. Please select the race and appearance of the character you would use while traversing the world. Nutjob. Shun Jingbin spat out a mouthful of old blood. She suddenly felt the urge to kill someone. Did you know why she was so careful when she chose her name? That's because her real name was too unpleasant. Shun Jingbin equals Nutjob. After living with this name for more than 20 years, she herself had nearly turned into a nutjob. It wasn't easy for her to play a game with intention of breaking away from this name, but who would have thought? Could this be the so-called man proposes but God disposes? Notification, in view of you taking an extended period of time to choose, would you like your race and appearance to be randomly selected? Yes or no? She had already been cheated once by the system, so how could she allow it to continue doing so? Shun Jingbin facepalmed as she hurriedly selected no, before she carefully scrutinized the various races that appeared in front of her, all of which used the appearance as the basis for their virtual form. Used her appearance. Legends of Celestials and Demons used ancient China as its backdrop. The races of the world were separated into 3 groups: humans, celestials, and demons. 2 sects belonged to each race for a total of 6. Players could choose to join either a race's 2 different respective sects after undergoing their advancement. Humans, who excelled at crowd control and defense, were made up of Taoists and Swordmasters. Taoists focused on control, while Swordmasters specialized in defense. Celestials were skilled at healing and magic, Nymphs handled healing, and Dragonkins wielded magic. And last but not least, demons boasted high HP and assassinations. Maras had high defensive capabilities, while liches conducted assassinations. Shun Jingbin felt that the 2 sects belonging to the Celestials were too upright and didn't suit her, while the demons, on the other hand, felt far too depressing as a race. So after giving it some thought, she decided to be a human and planned to walk the path of a crowd-control based Taoist. Race selection complete. Generating player avatar. Generation complete. Please modify your character's appearance by selecting whether you'd like to enhance or diminish its beauty. Enhance. Everyone had a love for beauty, so Shun Jingbin would naturally choose to beautify herself. The system has determined your beautification limit to be 1. Note, for the sake of your enjoyment in-game, please do not select this option. Big sis system, are you sure you aren't making fun of me? Then uglier it is. The system has determined the upper limit of your appearance's diminishment to be 99. Please select the level you'd like to set it at. 99. Shun Jingbin said without thinking, choosing to make herself as ugly as possible. It'd be far too embarrassing if someone recognized her name, so this was something she wanted to avoid. Since the upper limit of her beautification attribute was so low, making it very likely for someone to recognize her in-game, she decided to make herself look as ugly as possible instead. She might as well go all the way with it if she was going to make herself look ugly. Character creation complete. The system's notification rang out once again. Following that, a woman who had a bitter expression on her face and wore a set of white novice's clothes suddenly appeared in front of Shun Jingbin. Poof! Shun Jingbin suddenly choked on her own saliva. She swore this was definitely the ugliest face she had ever seen. The freckles that dotted her character's tan face was the splitting image of a scattered pieces of sesame on a biscuit. One of her eyes was larger than the other, while her eyebrows were sparse and lopsided. It gave her a wretched appearance no matter how one looked at it. What is that thing? Can I give up on my current character and remake it? After much effort, Shun Jingbin's self-hypnosis was finally a success. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she prepared to accept the changes and reincarnate into the game world as this ugly village girl, when she suddenly heard an unexpected ding 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 continuously ringing out in her ears. In view of you being the first player in game to achieve a beautification limit of 1, you've been granted a special reward of an additional 10 points to your charm attribute. In view of you being the first player in the game to achieve a maximum limit of 99 points for your uglification attribute, you've been granted a special reward of an additional 5 points to your luck attribute. In view of you being the player with the highest uglification attribute, you've been granted a special reward of an additional 10 points to your luck to allow you to enjoy the game. We wish you a pleasant gaming experience. In view of you being the first player worthy of receiving 3 special rewards, you've been granted the following special rewards: an additional 10 points of luck, miraculous stone, miraculous wooden board. Please be sure to safeguard these items. They may bring about a miracle for you as you traverse the world. Shun Jingbin was a little dumbfounded. Was this the advent of her amazing luck? That looks like 25 extra points of luck. Chapter's over, but that looks like 25 extra points of luck plus a miraculous stone and a miraculous wooden board. So we'll see. Will she use the wooden board as a weapon? Will the stone be something she throws at people? I don't know, but I'm sure we're going to find out. So on to the next chapter. This MC is Kickass. Chapter 2, The Novice Village. Pleasant-sounding music rang out in Shen Jingbin's ears when she suddenly felt faint. The next thing she knew, she found that she was now standing at the entrance of a small village. Many people made their way about the village. Practically every house had a stall set up in front of it with people buying and selling various items. Looks like this must be the legendary Novice Village. To ease player congestion, Legends of Celestials and Demons established many novice villages and randomized each player's starting village. Based on what Shen Jingbin knew, this game had been on the market for more than 2 years. In general, the population of most games would peak in 2 years unless a new version or a large-scale event was held, after which any growth the game experienced, if at all, would be minimal. But looking at the number of people who were milling about in the Novice Village, making it appear no less bustling than before, Shen Jingbin couldn't help but lament over the game's popularity. It was really worthy of its title as the #1 VR MMORPG. Its title wasn't just for show. Where did this ugly person come from? She's trying to show off her looks by blocking the road. As she sized up the Novice Village, Shen Jingbin suddenly heard a mocking voice from behind her. Looking back, she found that a female player who had probably just created her character as well was currently glaring at her. Due to the beautification attribute within the game, handsome men and beautiful women who looked like celebrities were a dime a dozen. Who knows how many points the female player behind her had to spend on her beautification attribute before she managed to make herself look like the celebrity X Bing Bing. "What are you looking at? Never seen a beautiful woman before?" the female player said as she shot Shen Jingbin a supercilious look. She then swung her slender waist to the side and walked past Shen Jingbin. Beauties truly were beauties. They looked good even when they rolled their eyes. This was definitely an era emphasizing one's look. Shen Jingbin wordlessly lit a candle for herself in her heart before she strode forward and followed the female player into the Novice Village. Based on how the houses looked, this Novice Village was probably situated on the frontier. All of the houses were short and constructed with mud bricks. Due to the weathering, the protective layer of lacquer covering them were now in bits and pieces, giving them a mottled appearance. The clothes that the NPCs wore were different from the costumes she'd seen in the dramas. Instead, they bore similarities to the apparel of minority groups. With white as a base, it was embroidered with mysterious and pleasant-looking totems. Additionally, each NPC had a piece of cloth that was as wide as an entire finger's length tied to their forehead. Just like their clothes, this piece of cloth was equally white and had totems embroidered on top of it. Shen Jingbin carefully examined the totem, noticing that it portrayed several green dragons stepping on magic clouds. These NPCs were likely believers of the celestial race, and this Novice Village was probably located near them. Crashing sounds could be heard when the beautiful player entered the village. Following that, several male players suddenly appeared by her side as they inquired about her health and invited her to join their party, causing the scene to become exceptionally lively. Several other players who were a step too slow very resourcefully shifted their gazes to Shen Jingbin, who was standing behind the female player as they prepared to go on the offensive against her. However, they immediately broke into a run once they were able to clearly discern her face, while others who had greater mental fortitude leaned against the wall and vomited. Shen Jingbin rubbed her nose and paid it no mind. Not having any playboys around her was a good thing. This big brother can admire his own beauty. Please proceed towards the village's chief residence to report and receive your reward as a new player. During their stay at the Novice Village, the actions of new players would be closely monitored and the system would provide some prompts to teach them how they should normally act. Shen Jingbin consoled herself by fussing with her travel attire as she proudly strode around the group of men who concerned themselves with looks. She followed the new player's guide and walked towards the village chief's abode. The village chief resided at the back of the village. Luckily, the Novice Village wasn't all that large, so only took a little while before she reached it. Different from the coarse-looking mud brick houses that the villagers lived in, the village chief's residence was clearly of a higher level. One could tell just by looking at the fence that surrounded it and the two fierce-looking dogs that guarded the entrance. Shen Jingbin sized herself up and glanced at the two healthy and vigorous-looking dogs. She had serious doubts whether she'd be able to safely get past these two dogs and enter the village chief's house. Holy shit, these two little brutes. Just wait till this young master becomes an expert. I'll definitely come back and slaughter the two of you. As she thought that, a male player came barreling out of the village chief's residence while swearing. He rushed out so quickly that Shen Jingbin could feel a gust of wind sweep past her ears. Huh? Was this a test that relied on speed? Shen Jingbin bowed her head and looked at herself as she thought, forget it. I wouldn't be able to make it even if I ran these little stubby little legs of mine broke. It's better if I don't put myself at risk. Maybe she should just jump over the fence instead. but rumor had it that the NPCs within the game possessed human personalities, and people who bore the title of village chief generally had a dislike for villains and people who committed misdeeds. For all she knew, jumping over the fence might ruin the village chief's impression of her. In that case, the gains she received would definitely outweigh her losses. Xinjingbin was definitely a tyrant when it came to matters relating to knowledge, but she was helpless when it came to things such as these. She couldn't come up with any good ideas even after she racked her brain, so she decided to look around the perimeter of the village chief's residence to check if there was any other way of getting in. Unexpectedly, just as Shen Jingbin was about to leave, the female player who resembled X Bingbing appeared alongside a throng of male players. Stopping in front of the village chief's house, those two large and ferocious-looking dogs didn't even issue a single yelp when they saw the number of people crowding the area. Instead, they crouched down on the floor in an exceedingly obedient manner and without a hint of hostility in them, followed the female player with their eyes as she sashayed into the village chief's residence. This was why the answer to some things at times was just that simple. That's the end of Chapter 2! Oh man, we're rushing through this already. As people know, some of the footnotes are VR MMORPGs mean virtual reality massively multiplayer online role-playing games, and NPCs are non-player characters. Figure if you're reading this novel, you probably know that, but I figured I'd read it out because it is in the footnotes. On to the next chapter, and we are here at Chapter 3, Village Chief, which we will start in just a second. Make sure everything's all set to go. Cool. All right, here we go. Chapter 3, Village Chief. One particularly notable selling point VR MMORPGs had was that they boasted beautiful and lifelike vistas. Shen Jingbin admired the unique scenery here, which no longer existed in real life, as she aimlessly wandered about. Drifting along, she unknowingly reached the boundary of the novice village. As she'd expected, the novice village that she was at was situated along the borders of the celestial and human races. Behind the novice village was a mountain that towered over the clouds. The mountain itself had a verdant and lush forest, and a single glance at it was enough for others to determine that it was out of the ordinary. Shen Jingbin immediately made up her mind and set off for the mountain. Likely, no one else would be senseless enough to climb a mountain instead of leveling up. The winding trail up the mountain only persisted for a short distance before it was replaced with weeds. Since the trail stopped there was no need for her to continue moving forward. In the instant she turned around and started making her way back, a white streak suddenly flashed past the corner of her eye. What was that? Shen Jingbin hurriedly focused her attention in the direction of the white streak. There she saw a white creature that looked like a rabbit, but wasn't quite one. It had run into the thick and solid trunk of an ancient tree before wordlessly collapsing onto the ground, its stocky hind legs continuously to unconsciously twitch. Was this the real-life version of idly waiting for an opportunity? She was left dumbstruck at the sight of this, only reacting after several seconds had passed. Walking over, she had a flabbergasted look on her face, then bending down, she had picked up this object that had knocked itself out. The system's voice rang out in her mind the second she touched it. Congratulations, you have obtained a dwarf-eared rabbit. Hint, the dwarf-eared rabbit is native to the celestial domain. Bring it to the village chief for inspection. Shen Jingbin lowered her head and looked at the object in her hand. She realized it really was a dwarf-eared rabbit. Its ears were so short, it didn't look a single bit like a rabbit. Sure enough, it really was part of the celestial domain, even if its rabbits had such a unique appearance. Since she received the prompt from the system, Shen Jingbin chose not to wander around any longer and tossed the rabbit into her backpack. Following that, she moved so fast she almost flew as she sped towards the village chief's residence. Strangely, the two dogs no longer put on a ferocious appearance when they saw her. Instead, they looked a little like they were trying to curry favor with her as they wagged their tails. Shen Jingbin always did like obedient creatures. Now in a good mood, she stroked their heads and swaggered into the village chief's residence. Several players who happened to witness this scene were left bewildered by the sight. That girl was so ugly, even the village chief's two dogs were afraid of her. Inside, she was greeted by a man leisurely sipping his tea as he reclined on his chair. This man was exceedingly handsome. He had a slender build and wore a white robe. The man carried himself so well that he put all the other NPCs to shame. Seeing her enter, the man put down the cup of hot tea he was carrying in his hands, his eyes widened slightly, and he inched his line of sight upward. He emanated an indescribable aura of attraction. Before Shen Jingbin even got the chance to lament over how handsome the village chief was, her excellent village captured the man's face, losing all of its previous bearing after laying eyes on her. Even his cheeks had unnaturally trembled of several times. The good impression that she'd just formed of him was instantly wiped clean. Was this NPC concerned with how she looked as well? The man took several deep breaths in what looked to be an attempt to recompose himself before he slowly spoke. Since ancient times, there are many dangerous things out in the world. Youth, are you sure you've made up your mind? Shen Jingbin replied normally and said, In that case, I won't stop you since you've made your decision. Take this wooden recommendation plaque and keep it with you till you've gained some accomplishments. Once you have, you can pay your respects and enter any sect of your choosing. You could even go to the ones that belong to the celestial and demon races. Shen Jingbin stepped forward and received the wooden recommendation plaque before she said, "Thank you, village chief." Likely due to her favorable attitude, the man let out a sigh and spoke once again with some concern. A majority of the people in this world assess you based on superficial traits. With your appearance, you'll inevitably face some difficulties. I hope you don't act rashly and instead give some thorough consideration in whatever you do. I have some medicinal pellets. They're of no use to me now, so you'll be able to help you once or twice when you get injured. Shen Jingbin was caught off guard. She never expected him to have such a lifelike personality, and the previous good impression she'd had of him was slightly restored. As she received the man's medicinal pellets, Shen Jingbin suddenly remembered the dwarf-eared rabbit in her backpack. She hurriedly pulled it out and brought it in front of the man, asking, "Village chief, I picked this up just now. Could you help me take a look at it?" The man's beautiful eyes instantly widened, and he stared intently at the dwarf-eared rabbit in her hands. It took him quite a while before he managed to recompose himself before his gaze landed on her face, as if he was trying to find something from it. Shen Jingbin felt rather awkward when the man stared at her, but luckily he only did so for several seconds before he retracted his gaze and laughed, causing his handsome eyes and brows to look even more lively. The man gave a hearty laugh as he took the dwarf-eared rabbit from her and gently caressed it with one of his own large hands. Shen Jingbin didn't know why, but her precious little heart couldn't help but tremble in accordance with the man's swaying hand. Subconsciously, she felt that this comfortable sensation she was experiencing was extremely dangerous. While stroking the rabbit, he said, "You are a very blessed person. This dwarf-eared rabbit is a celestial spirit pet. In all my years that I've resided in the Evening Sun Village, let alone catch one, I haven't even been able to lay eyes on them. Who would have thought that someone like you, who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, would be able to get your hands on one of them?" The corner of Shen Jingbin's lips tugged upwards into a smile. Without saying a word, she cursed him in her heart. "How do you plan on catching one if you've never even taken a step out of your house?" All right, that's chapter 3. We move along at a steady pace. All right, so let's move on to chapter 4. It seems like the rabbit hitting the tree was a part of her luck. So there's probably going to be a lot of happenstance happening around this character just because of her 25 luck skill. And we don't know what the base luck is for this character. I would assume it's probably something at 5. So she's probably got like 5 luck. Or 30 luck total right now. And all the characters, aside from her, are pretty but have 5 luck. So what's better, being pretty and having things handed to you, or just being lucky and getting things happen to you as opposed to handed to you? I don't know. I guess we will find out. And we will find out in the coming chapters. So let's go ahead and move on to chapter 4. Let me close this ad. Chapter 4, The Village Chief's Worries. The dwarf-eared rabbit that Shen Jingbin had just caught clearly meant a lot to the man. A look of joy filled his face, to the point that where even the corners of his eyes and brows seemed to have been infected by his mirth. It was said that everything had the tendency to look nicer when a person felt happy. Sure enough, when he looked at Shen Jingbin once again, he now felt that she looked somewhat kind-hearted and cute. "Do you know who I used to be?" Shen Jingbin shook her head and said, "No, I don't. I was originally a disciple of the Swordmaster Pavilion. At that time, during the Great War between the Celestials and the Demons, I sustained a severe injury that destroyed my foundation. The Swordmaster Pavilion had always been filled with talented people. Back then, I was proud and arrogant. I couldn't bear the destruction of my foundation and the embarrassment of being ridiculed by others, so I made up my mind to leave the sect. Fortunately, I chanced upon a pill recipe that allowed me to reconstruct my foundation. As such, I started touring the world in search of medicinal ingredients. Over the next few years, I'd almost managed to gather all of the required ingredients, all except the catalyst, the dwarf-eared rabbit. I'd previously heard my junior disciples of the Spirit Beast Garden say that the dwarf-eared rabbit fed on spiritual grass, which allowed them to accumulate an abundant amount of spiritual energy. However, their exceptionally timid nature caused them to dash away at the sight of anything. Not only was it a near impossible task to catch them, even seeing them was a challenge in itself. Most people would have only heard about it but never seen one before. However, when I was still in the sect, I discovered from an ancient bamboo strip that the dwarf-eared rabbit could only be found in the vicinity of a small frontier settlement called Evening Sun Village. As a result, I made my way over here to look for it. The man paused for a moment before continuing. Putting aside the fact that Evening Sun Village was situated in a remote location, it bordered the realms of both the human and the celestial races. However, both of them subconsciously neglected the commoners living here. When I first came, these people were still living within an abyss of suffering as a result of their neglect. The Swordmaster Pavilion has always paid great attention to the fated encounters, righteousness, and benevolence. Using that as a pretext to stay here and heal, I naturally couldn't disregard the dire straits that the village was in. As such, I took on the responsibilities of the village chief once I found a place to stay. I tried to provide some help while at the same time giving guidance to the youths who wish to travel the world. This could also be considered as my bit of contribution to the Swordmaster Pavilion. Only unexpectedly, after so many years of giving guidance to countless youths, I still hadn't seen hide nor hair of the dwarf-eared rabbit. I once asked the elderly within the village about this matter, and they told me that only those with a profound amount of good fortune would be able to catch sight of one. You're the most fortunate person I've seen in all these years, and as such, I'd like to entrust you with a certain matter, and hope that you'd be able to accomplish it for me. Just as he finished speaking, a ding rang out and the system's voice surfaced within Xianxia consciousness. Congratulations on triggering the hidden quest, Worries of the Evening Sun Village's Chief. Are you willing to accept this quest? Yes or no? Trigger conditions: submit a dwarf-eared rabbit and have more than 5 points of charm. Before entering the game, Xianxia had looked through some guides on the forum, so she knew that the novice village's chief served no other purpose than to give out the wooden recommendation plaque. The forums made no mention of him giving out a quest, so the quest box that floated in front of her eyes must be the aptly named Hidden Quest. There were many hidden quests with generous rewards in Legends of Celestials and Demons. These hidden quests could be more or less be split into 2 categories, the first of which was a one-off hidden quest, while the other was an epic grade hidden quest that could influence the structure of the game world. One-off hidden quests referred to quests that weren't affected by a player's ability to complete it. This sort of quest could only be triggered once and couldn't be triggered a second time. Epic grade hidden quests, on the other hand, couldn't be triggered by other players until the player who first initiated it failed. When that happened, the next player who came along would be able to start the quest. Of course, the conditions for triggering these quests could change at any time. However, regardless of the type of hidden quest they were, one could only come across them by chance. So what possible reason could she have to reject a hidden quest? Xianxia immediately nodded her head and replied, "I'll help, of course I'll help." Upon hearing her answer, the man was filled with even more elation and said, "That's great! In that case, could I trouble you to help me catch a few more of these dwarf-eared rabbits?" Xianxia nodded her head in affirmation. Suddenly, a new quest appeared in the originally empty quest interface. Quest: The Worries of the Evening Sun Village's Chief. Submit dwarf-eared rabbits, 0 of 9. Hint: only players that are lower than level 10 and have more than 18 points of luck will be able to encounter a dwarf-eared rabbit. As her gaze fell on the last few words of the hint, Xianxia suddenly felt the urge to face the heavens and laugh. After entering the game world, each player's starting attributes would be based on the condition of their bodies and the race they chose. However, their total stats wouldn't differ by much. For example, when players enter the game for the first time, they'd only have 2 or 3 points in special attributes such as luck, or if they had a little more, they might have 5 to 6 points instead. However, someone like her who had 25 points of luck would definitely be a one-of-a-kind prodigy. Although special attributes could be accumulated further down the road, hidden quests were practically the only ones that gave them out as a reward. On top of that, most players would immediately rush towards the capital city to enter a sect once they reached level 15. Even if they came back at a higher level, no one would take the trouble to climb the mountain and catch the rabbits like she did. Moreover, even if someone did manage to accumulate enough luck, anyone who was senseless enough to return to the novice village and climb the mountain would find themselves unable to catch one. After all, the level restriction preventing players that were above level 9 from catching a dwarf-eared rabbit were in place. Therefore, this quest was practically tailor-made for her. All right, that is Chapter 4. Man, we're just breezing through this. Shout out to Christopher Soon, who's in the chat. He says, "Hey, enjoy your content and reading is done really well. I like that the new background. Just want to ask if there's a schedule and what the next novel you talk about is." There's no schedule. I work all the time. Just like Rainbow Turtle releases Overgeared on his own schedule, I can't really schedule this stuff because I never know when I'm going to have time. It's always crazy, and I never know what novel I'm going to do next. So this one, obviously I was reached out to, so I was like, hey, like I'm definitely going to interview you, so that sounds cool, but let me read the novel a little bit first. And I know Jim Inks was the one who recommended this novel to me and recommended I interview the translator, so I was like, okay, cool, I'll check it out. So this was more of a, hey, this works, let me do it, so I'm doing it. But there's no real rhyme or reason. I don't like having things feel like a job, so I'm very into just kind of doing my own thing and uploading stuff and doing it when I can. The plan before was every Tuesday to put something up, but I found that Tuesdays ended up like being super busy every other 3 weeks or something like that. So it'd be like, yeah, I could do a Tuesday for 4 weeks, and then after that, the Tuesday would get really busy, and then I couldn't do it on Tuesday. And then I'd like feel stressed out that I couldn't do it on Tuesday. So it just got a little bit too stressful to kind of try to keep a schedule. So I'm going to try to put out one piece of content at least every week, just so people have something, which will be either a translator interview or a reading. Obviously, if I'm going to interview a translator, I'm going to want to do a reading of their stuff, either 5 chapters or 10 chapters. So we'll see. And now we will move on to chapter 5 of this MC is Kickass. After I close these ads. Shout out to Christopher for watching live, though. Thank you for joining the live chat. And if you guys want to join the live chat, just whenever you see that notification that I'm live, I'll have it open. It'll be fun. Ooh, this chapter is making me hungry because chapter 5 is called Pie from the Heavens. With the good fortune granted to her by her luck stat, it took Shun Jingbin a moment to complete her quest. She threw all of the rabbits she caught into her backpack and hurried back to the novice village. When she reached the village chief's house, there just so happened to be a few new players receiving their novice rewards. When they turned their heads to look at her, they were so startled by her appearance that their legs felt weak and they nearly sank to their knees in front of the village chief. Someone quietly cursed, "Fuck, she's definitely a special kind of ugly. She's so ugly that she's practically setting a new standard for it." Shun Jingbin glanced at the player who cursed her without saying a word, after which she silently walked to the side and sat on a chair. The village chief still had an unfathomable look on his face. When she came in, he cast a sidelong glance at her before returning his attention to the players in front of him. After all, he was a competent NPC that carried out his tasks well. While sitting on the chair, Shun Jingbin heard the village chief gloomily reciting his script to the players. However, she had a feeling that his words were delivered a little faster than usual, breaking the unique aura of a mysterious expert that he previously exuded. Of course, this might all be in her head. In the blink of an eye, the village chief finished his speech and sent off the new players. The player who quietly cursed Shun Jingbin had his novice reward revoked, which led him to ruthlessly be spit on in front of her as he walked past. He was like spitting in front of her as he walked past because he was pissed off. Okay. Shun Jingbin wondered if there was something wrong with him. After the new players departed without waiting for him to speak, Shun Jingbin took out the rabbits and passed them over to the village chief. The village chief wore an expression that seemed to say, "This child can be taught," as he looked at her and said, "Sure enough, heroes are born from youths. Considering this time as me owing you a favor, if the day I fully recover and return to the Swordmaster Pavilion comes, I'll prepare another meager gift to return the kindness that you've shown me today." Shun Jingbin waved her hand and replied, "There's no need for you to do such a thing. Your recovering is enough for me." Several rabbits turned into a streak of white light and disappeared into the village chief's palm. He looked up at her and said, "Take out the wooden recommendation plaque that I gave you before." "Ah?" Shun Jingbin eyed him suspiciously. "That plaque is far too ordinary. I'll give you a new one. With your level of luck, it'll be the good fortune of any sect you enter. I'll have to inform the disciples of the reception hall first. At the same time, I know it's selfish of me to ask, but I'd like you to join the Swordmaster Pavilion." "Yeah, right. I want to be a Taoist nun." Shun Jingbin silently rebuked him while she obediently exchanged her wooden recommendation plaque for a brand new one. This new wooden plaque in her hands looked about the same as the previous one, but included several additional white cloud patterns. There was also some traditional Chinese characters carved in the lower left-hand corner of the plaque. On closer inspection, she could make out the words, Bai Hua, inscribed on it. Almost as if he could read her mind, Bai Hua spoke up. "Bai Hua is my name!" Shun Jingbin cautiously placed the wooden plaque into her storage pouch and said, "Thank you, village chief. I hope you get well soon. I'll be taking my leave first." Bai Hua nodded his head and replied, "The road ahead is filled with peril and countless hidden dangers. I can't give you much help now. At present, I can only give you some life-saving items. You should take good care of yourself for the time being." After finishing what he wanted to say, without waiting for Shun Jingbin to reply, several white streaks of light flashed out from his body. Ding! The sound of the system's notification rang out once again. "Congratulations on completing the quest Worries of the Evening Sun Village's Chief. Crest Reward, Bai Hua's Wooden Recommendation Plaque, Silver Moon Silk Robe, Silver Moon Silk Belt, Silver Moon Silk Shoes, 5 million experience points, 50 Taels of Silver, 2,000 Chivalric Prestige. Evening Sun Village Chief's goodwill towards you has increased by 80 points. The goodwill of all NPCs in Evening Sun Village has increased by 50 points. Notification, as you have collected the full Silver Moon Silk set, all of its hidden attributes have been activated. Notification, as you have passed level 15, please head towards River City to enter a sect." What the fuck? There was equipment with hidden attributes? After hearing the system's notification, Shun Jingbin couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Eyebrows that were so sparse they could be disregarded as eyebrows, and opened her storage pouch. She took out the equipment she received as a reward from the village chief and started to inspect them. Silver Moon Silk Robe, made by Grandmaster Taylor, rarity purple, able to grow, durability 50 of 50, physical strength +5, inner strength +5, speed +3, hidden attribute, charm +4, chance to root enemies, passive. Silver Moon Silk Belt, made by Grandmaster Taylor, rarity purple, ability to grow, durability 50 of 50, physical strength +1, inner strength +1, speed +1, hidden attribute, consumption of a player's inner strength decreased by 1%, passive. Silver Moon Silk Pants, made by a Grandmaster Taylor, rarity purple, able to grow, a durability 25 of 25, physical strength +1, inner strength +1, speed +1, hidden attribute, reduces player's casting time by 2%, passive. Silver Moon Silk Shoes, made by a Grandmaster Taylor, rarity purple, able to grow, durability 30 of 30, physical strength +2, inner strength +2, speed +5, hidden attribute, player's speed increased by 3%, passive. What does pie falling from the heavens mean? It means this! Based on her many years of gaming experience, the rewards given by this quest were definitely top tier. Putting aside the fact that a set of growing equipment was extremely valuable, just the experience she received that boosted her straight to level 18 was generous enough. On top of that, the increase in goodwill she received meant that the chances of her receiving better quests from the NPCs in Evening Sun Village were greatly increased. Shen Jingbing was overjoyed as she swapped out her novice equipment. Shen Jingbing immediately looked completely different after she changed her equipment. Although she still looked ugly, the equipment helped her carry herself just a little bit better. After all, clothes make the man. That is Chapter 5, and we have come to the end of our readings for today. Shout out to everyone who translates this novel. Shout out to Sigil, Teapot, Koo, and Maiden Rozie, who is also a translator, as you can see this image right here. And the novel, again, is this MC is Kickass. You can check it out at VolareNovels.com. Pretty cool so far. I dig it. It's kind of like a less comical show me the money, but it starts off similarly as Jim Inks' novel, why am I forgetting the name? Reign of the Hunters, except this isn't a transmigration or reincarnation novel. This is straight up like she just buys the game. So that's cool. She has a history with gaming, but she's not like an expert or like one of those top tier players from another game that moved over to this game. They made it fairly simple. They didn't give a character much of a real life backstory, so it made it really easy to dive in. So I'm digging it so far. Let me know what you guys think. Oh, I also want to shout out the editor Purpledragon, because editors make the book so much easier to read. Honestly, without the editor, I wouldn't be able to do these readings so well, because if I was trying to correct myself based on the grammar every 5 seconds, these readings wouldn't work out too well. So shout out to them. Shout out to VolareNovels. Shout out to @Volare. Shout out to everyone who's supported the show so far. Christopher Soon, Red Mirage, everyone on Twitter who's been so awesome. Please, if you can, share this with your friends. This audio will be uploaded to iTunes on the podcast under Immortal Index. If you want to help me out, leave me a rating and review on there. 5 stars helps me out greatly. The more ratings I get on iTunes, the more I get seen on their searchability. It helps with SEO phenomenally. So help me out there. Subscribe on YouTube. As I was saying, thanks so much for everyone on Twitter who follows the show, supports me. Shout out to Deathblade for the pronunciation help. He didn't help me with this one, so if I'm pronouncing her name totally wrong, Shen Jingbin, then sorry, my bad. Not a native speaker. But yeah, that's the chapters for today, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much, and take care.